Hello, I'm Maralyn Crellin, and I'd like to welcome you to Shiaght Laa. Mish Maralyn Crellin as bavaliam cyffailcher iwdus y Clare Show, Shiaght Laa. Ta Shiaght Laa na Clare ta jichen culture y Shanachus Elian Vannin. In Shiaght Laa, we look at some of the cultural and historic events of the island. In the programme this week, Heed Blaine Jane Tai Tashti on Stoolish, 100 years of the Manx Museum in Douglas, and Erach na Gilga, the heritage of the Manx Gaelic. We look ahead to the Cooish, a festival to celebrate the Manx language. This evening, Thursday the 27th of October at 7 o'clock, you can go along to Ramsey Town Hall for Our Iconic Seals, Think Seal, a talk by Sue Sayer of the Seal Research Trust. This is organised by the Manx Wildlife Trust, and the Trust would be grateful for a donation of at least £1 from audience members. All are very welcome. On Saturday the 29th of October, Manning Quilters will be holding their autumn fair in Ballasalla Village Hall from 10:30 to 2:30. In the Manx Museum Lecture Theatre in Douglas, starting at 2:30 on Saturday, Bob Stimpson of the Isle of Man Victorian Society, in conjunction with Manx National Heritage, will be giving a free illustrated presentation called Life Under Water, The Lost Farms and Railway of West Baldwin Reservoir. And I'm sure you'll hardly need reminding, the end of the month on Monday brings Hop Tunay. Ons hoci jeg quegas feed, hug dunya emsit treva ash ebon, na dute rish, and tai tashti vannin. Erach he tui on stoolish, as ruthen vain dulju as shan ruthen lau gin torn. Harawe lied and tai tashti ta fisain jew, a foddi de rawe smoo gorish cabinet vi arenen. Egatoshach, fe ho and all, as de scuch treva ashe vain he tui dus troggle smoo. Ni yai liodi and sim hoshi de lie, as va all you and ergid ek treva ash kailch, as ve presunit majata uns cash del Russian. De hamlach she uns cash del Russian gau tai tashti ikach ta fisain Jew toshach. After exhibits were on display in Castle Rushen for some years, there came an opportunity for the Manx Museum to be housed in Douglas. As we heard from Katie King of MNH last time, that's being celebrated with an exhibition, Museum 100, which was officially opened last Friday evening at the Manx Museum. We'll hear more from the official opening next time, but this time we hear Chairman of the Manx Museum and National Trust Jonathan Hall and Director of the Manx Museum Connie Lovel.
But just before we hear the recordings from the Manx Museum, I was there and made a backup recording, but we're very grateful to Colin Cowie of MNH for making this far better quality recording available to us. We hear very briefly first from Connie Lovel, the Executive Director of the Manx Museum, who introduces Jonathan Hall, and we hear more from Connie Lovel a little later.
Your Excellency, Lady Lorimer, honourable members and guests, welcome to Manx National Heritage and to the Manx Museum. We have an evening of delight for you to see firsthand the new exhibition that launches officially tomorrow. First of all, I'd like to hand over to our Chairman of the Manx Museum and National Trust, Jonathan Hall.
Your Excellency, Lady Lorimer, honourable members and guests of Manx National Heritage, welcome to Museum 100, which celebrates the century of the Manx Museum and its diverse collections. The Manx Museum is home to an extraordinary collection of artefacts that tell the story of the Isle of Man and its people. The remit of the Manx Museum has always been to collect and preserve the history of the Manx people, which means the collections are unique in that they only contain artefacts that are connected to the Isle of Man. Considering the limited capacity of our storage facilities, this is probably just as well. A nation is defined as a body of people united by common descent, history, culture, or language, inhabiting a particular country or territory. Our history is essential to provide context for the world that we live in today and to shape decisions for the future. Our heritage is by definition what unites us. Our national collections have been developed over the course of 100 years, and they continue to evolve. Those collections reflect over 10,000 years of our island's cultural and natural heritage. They reveal stories about how we have grown as a nation, and they provide a constant source of inspiration and pride for each new generation. Whilst we're celebrating the establishment of the museum 100 years ago, we should not forget that the remit of the trustees was extended in 1951 to include the protection of the natural environment. M&H, or should I say, the Manx Museum and National Trust, is one of the largest landowners in the island, and of course we have responsibility for some of the island's most iconic sites, the Calf of Man, the Curraghs, and Erie Cushlin, to mention but a few. We've always been and remain a charitable trust. Although the Manx government provide not inconsiderable support, we are independent. We would not be here today without the work and commitment of our predecessors. We are merely the current carriers of the torch. I know His Excellency will talk about some of the illustrious contributors later, and in recognition of the huge interest which His Excellency and Lady Lorimer have shown in all matters heritage, it would be impolite for me to get in there first. However, I do want to recognise the contribution of those who have gone before us, and it's delightful to see that a number of former leaders of M&H have been able to join us this evening. I suspect that all of us who have had any involvement with Manx national heritage are well aware that if we take our eye off the ball for a moment, then treasures may be lost, and once they've gone, we can't bring them back. The fact that we have so many artefacts, and Katie was saying we have over 1 million artefacts in storage, is due to the people who have gone before us who have preserved those artefacts. An exhibition such as Museum 100 does not happen overnight. When I asked at the start of the year what we were doing to mark the centenary, I was told the plans are well advanced. Having had a sneak preview, you will see later how true that statement was. You really are in for a treat. And I suspect you'll have to come back a number of times to get full value. Whilst achieving something on this scale is always a huge team effort, I would like to give some special thanks, in no particular order, to Colin Cowie, who's the Senior Technician Installations, who was ably aided and abetted by Dewan Quain from the Sites and Monument team for wallpapering assistance. Chris Weeks and Emma Lecornu, who are our Objects and Archives conservators. Christina Gleave, our graphic design, and Emma and Christina are at long last out in the limelight, so it's lovely to see. Christine Gleave for graphic design, and of course Katie King, our curator for art and social history. Museum 100 is a celebration, and I hope you enjoy it. But it's also an opportunity to reflect on the role and purposes of museums. And on that note, I will hand you over to our Executive Director, Connie Lovel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. We're in uncertain times, and we perhaps need our museums more than we've ever needed a museum. A museum can act as an anchor in a storm, and the Manx Museum provides that anchor. We serve our community in a multitude of ways, and we act as a true constant in today's rapidly changing world. Over recent years, there's been a dramatic rise also in cultural tourism. And museums are often now the backbone of visitor economy strategies, true too here on the Isle of Man. We're a significant contributor to the growth and stability of the economy. There is a view by some that museums are places where forgotten objects are sent to their final resting place, whereas in reality, we actually play a fundamental role in preserving the history of our society. Exhibits tell us stories about how our nation and our cultures came to be, and without a museum such as this, those stories could be forgotten. The Manx Museum helps to honour our cultures, customs, our heritage and our legacy. We must also continue to be relevant, and whereas our heritage is likely to be relevant to probably each of us here this evening, we must continue to appeal to and attract a broader audience than those of us who are already converted. A visit to the Manx Museum, that may just rekindle a feeling that history does mean something to you after all, and that perhaps you should have listened more at school. Or there could be that one single object that makes your heart sing and gives you that moment of sheer joy every time you see it. Someone recently said to me, the Manx Museum is a treasure trove of interesting stuff. But he then said, it's stuff that can make you stop and reflect for a moment. I would ask you please this evening, on your way home, to reflect for that moment. What does this museum mean to you? How often do you visit? How often do you engage with the displays? How often do you personally act as an ambassador and recommend the Manx Museum as a fascinating place to come and spend quality time? In today's turbulent world, the Manx Museum is a place for everyone to enjoy. It's a warm space, it's a safe haven, and it's a friendly place where your day can be truly enriched by a visit. Please also, on your way home, take a moment to reflect on the significance of this building and the national collections, yours, mine, ours, and the essential role that Manx National Heritage plays to champion, protect, and promote our nation's heritage. The Manx Museum spans 10,000 years of the history of the Isle of Man, from the Stone Age to the modern era, and over the past 100 years, this Manx Museum has told many stories and conserved many artefacts. We have much to celebrate through this particular celebration and exhibition. We also share our 100th birthday with many global names, and 1922 was a year for many memorable firsts. I was surprised when I looked this up at how many there were. BBC, you all know about that. There's lots of promotion about the BBC at the moment, but also Reader's Digest and Time magazine. There was a British scientist and mathematician who published the weather prediction by numerical process, which is still the basis for today's weather forecasting, which is hugely important to us here on the Isle of Man. Centre Court at the All England Lawn Tennis Club hosted its first match. Insulin was first used as diabetes, and Branston Pickle was first launched. All of these important moments, contributors to the timeline of life, will have been captured by some museum somewhere in the world, even the Branston Pickle. Your preview of the Museum 100 exhibition this evening will be a feast for the eyes, with many artefacts on public display for the very first time. 200 objects are included in the exhibition. Some items were part of the foundation collections of the museum and have been cared for by our predecessors for more than 100 years, and others are very recent acquisitions which reflect our society and our community as it is today. Highlights include the oldest surviving Manx motor vehicle, the first piece of Viking treasure ever collected by the museum, and a magnificent Brian Neal mural. Collections matter. The Manx National Collection belongs to you, belongs to your children and your grandchildren, and Manx National Heritage continues to champion, protect and promote it. Every object in the National Collection is an important piece of the jigsaw that shapes our island's history. The story, and you, we, are all part of that story. And exploring this collection helps us to understand who we are, where we have come from, where we live, and how we can consider our future direction. So all 200 objects in this museum exhibition this evening have been photographed, and those records are published on the iMuseum. And this shares our story more widely worldwide. There were more than 1 million items from the collection to choose from, as Jonathan has already said. Very briefly before I hand over, we'll also be launching Mission 100 on Monday the 24th of October. And thank you to Hello Little People, who I think have joined us this evening. It's a family-focused audio adventure through the museum. It's developed by the Children's Theatre Specialists, Hello Little People, on behalf of Manx National Heritage. Mission 100 Save the Stories is its title, and it's inspired by the histories that fill this museum. The stories of Viking treasure, saved by PMC Commode, and the huge giant deer skeleton, of course. These stories will be told through specially composed songs, characters, and sound effects. And this will bring the museum alive in its centenary year and ignite the imaginations of all those taking part. That's for all ages, not just the children, although hopefully we're all children at heart.
At the official opening of the Museum 100 exhibition last Friday evening, we heard Chairman of the Manx Museum and National Trust, Jonathan Hall, and Director of the Manx Museum, Connie Lovel. The exhibition has been opened in time to celebrate the centenary of the opening, which took place on the 2nd of November 1922. We'll hear more from the ceremony to open the centenary exhibition in Shiaght Laa next time, including the contribution of His Excellency the Lieutenant Governor Sir John Lorimer. By Féinish enman Greinneyder clan Cunneachtain, Fethanat uns Mannin, as by Agaton J. Realty Bretonach Talw, Tanish uns Breton Tui, Merseyside, as Sustus Cumbria, Va Mannin na Lai, uns Red Van Chinia Bretonach, Henkt ve Bretnish no Emshirach, Leshe Coheniach and Kernoish as Britannish. Niai, vai an Hwegu Keed Blaine and Jan, Henk Mannen de Vein a Chi of our Lord Gilg. Na Henk and Garishen vai an Elian Tanish Njeren, na Rawe Enol vai Neren Sus dus na Tanish Nalban, as Henki dus Mannen Vaishen. There's scholarly debate about the extent to which the Isle of Man remained Gaelic-speaking during the time of what's called the Scandinavian period. However, the best-known figure, the one who set up the Kingdom of Man and the Isles, was Godred Crellin. And whilst Godred is a Scandinavian name, Crellin is Gaelic. As we've heard in relation to the Manx Museum, there was a time when in the Manx past, including its Gaelic language, was dismissed, even derided. However, the importance and value of the island's heritage is now recognised and celebrated. Here's in Greinneyder the Manx Language Officer for Cooish Vannin, Ruth Keggin Gell, to tell us about an event next week, the Cooish.
The Cooish started out as the Failure Gilgach, and it was set up a number of years ago, in the late 90s it was, as really a way of bringing everyone together for a few days and celebrating the Manx language. And there's lots of opportunities for fluent Manx speakers to get together and attend talks and various things, as well as having a Cooish, getting together and having a chat and really celebrating Manx. And it changed its name to Cooish a little while after that. And that nice one word, it just encapsulates lots of different things. The Cooish obviously has so many meanings. It can be a cosy chat, but also a matter or a cause or a subject. So it's got lots of different meanings and it's still going strong. So this year it's taking place between the 2nd to the 6th of November. And there'll be events all over the island, 14 events in total. And there really will be something for everybody, no matter what level of Manx people have, or if they're brand new to the language, or if they've been speaking it fluently for years.
It's starting on Wednesday the 2nd. So what's happening on the Wednesday then?
On the Wednesday, there's a couple of pop-up Manx classes taking place in Henry Bloom Noble Library. So the first one's at 12:20 until 10 to 1, and the second one's at 1 until 10 to 2. So they're half hour long. They're designed to fit into a lunch break. So people who are in offices can go along and do a bit of Manx at lunchtime. They don't have to be in offices, of course. They can just come along, whatever. And then they could just sign up to those either by emailing me, gilg@culturevannin.im, gilg spelled Gaelg, or they can just sign up through the website as well, through learnmanx.com/Cooish. And later that day, there's a talk in Manx, and it's from Peel to Fleshick on the sea, or from the sea. And it's a talk about all sorts of things. There's landmarks, a bit of history, the fishing, and the different sort of creatures that live in the sea creatures. And that's delivered by Joe Collister and Adam Horn, and that's going to be in the Ebenezer Hall in Kirkmichael. And you'll get a bit of scran if you went along to that. And in the evening, that's at 7 o'clock. And if you want to go to that, that's £2 entry, and that'll include a bit of food and drink.
And that's been a feature of the Cooish Festival, in addition to talks and sessions in the English language about Manx subjects and so on. There's always been a talk in the Manx language, and it's been very varied.
Yes, we've had a number of talks over the years, and this year is no different. This one's about the fishing and around the Isle of Man. And there's been all sorts of topics over the years, and I think that's something that's really important, is just for people to be able to go along to something and learn through Manx, and just Manx is the medium of the talk. So that is one of the features of the Cooish as well, learning something through Manx.
On Thursday the 3rd of November, now, again, there's a pop-up Gaeltach this time.
There is at the Noah Bakehouse in Market Hall in Douglas between 12 and 2. So Manx speakers of all abilities can go along to that. That's organised by the language charity Pobble. And come along, buy a little bit of lunch or just a cup of tea or coffee, whatever you want to do, and speak some Manx. And that'll be a nice opportunity to do that over lunchtime as well. So pop up Gaeltach then. And in the evening that day, between 7 and 9, there'll be a song night taking place in the Methodist Hall in St John's, and that's a jointly organised event between Munjaverga, the educational charity who run the preschool in St John's, and also the Bunskull Gilgach, who have just celebrated not long ago their 20th anniversary, and it's celebrating 25 years of original songs and rhymes over the years. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, who's listening, the Bunskull has every year they have original musicals written for them with bespoke songs, and they're wonderful, and there's some real tunes that go on there, and also sung in the nursery as well. So come along to that, and really, they'll be in for a musical treat that evening. So that's taking place in St John's. And from 9 o'clock that evening, if people want to go along to something after that, there's another Manx conversation session happening in the White House in Peel from 9 o'clock. And that's with a group who usually kind of meet there on a Thursday, every other Thursday anyway. And they're very lovely and welcoming to new folk who want to come along. So do come along to that.
Ruth Keggin Gell and Greinneyder, the Manx language officer to Culture Vannin, giving us an overview of the Cooish and particular events starting next Wednesday, the 2nd of November. We'll hear more about the rest of the events for the Cooish next time. As Leshen Tashin Chit does Jerry Shiaght Laa and Shiaght Shaw. There'll be more from Shiaght Laa next Thursday at 6. But now from me, Agnish Fo and Maralyn Crellin, sledding you